Humans are only the second deadliest animals in the world. What else could be responsible for the most annual deaths? And you mean to tell me that Taiwan's infamous little black mosquitoes aren't even mosquitoes? What else could they be? Spend the next 20 minutes feeding your brain with Formosa Fauna so you can learn all about the animal kingdom and become smarter than all of your friends. What better way to spend your commute or downtime? Every Friday is Formosa Fauna Friday. I'm Tristan Hildebrand, the voice of Formosa Fauna. I love animals and I love talking about animals. Last week, we talked about a contest where viewers who send in letters to Radio Taiwan International can get a box of animal-centric merchandise. Somewhere in this episode, I will give you an update about that. Has the first letter arrived yet? If so, whose is it? I'll talk a little bit about that later. July 10th, which was Wednesday this week, was National Kitten Day. Did anybody celebrate? It is a huge shame that we missed it on here, but what we won't be missing out on is the next animal-oriented holiday, Ratcatcher's Day. Yay! Ratcatcher's Day, I found, is even more interesting than I thought it would be. National Ratcatcher's Day is largely of German origin. It commemorates the story of the Pied Piper of Hamelin and serves to thank all present-day exterminators. According to the folktale, in 1284, the year 1284, or by some accounts 1376, residents of Hamelin in Germany hired a strangely dressed man to get rid of their village of rats. The Pied Piper did so by playing his flute. As the story goes, the townsfolk then refused to pay him, so the Pied Piper returned, once again playing his flute, but this time it was the children who followed him out of the town, and they were never to return again. Ratcatcher's Day will be on July 22nd. Some places in the world celebrate with festivals and reenactments. Meanwhile, if we hop on over to the United States present time in New York City, rats have been declared public enemy number 1. For a long time, urban legend had it that there were up to 5 times as many rats as people in the city. If you're interested in watching something about this, there's a 23-minute feature titled New Yorkers and Their Dogs on the Front Lines of the City's War on Rats by SBS Dateline, available for free on YouTube. It first introduces a, in quotations, bona fide rat killer who has been targeting the city's rats for the past 35 years. In the video, you get to meet the dogs that they work with and learn about what makes them good rat hunters. According to their sources, the root of the problem is the endless amount of trash that the city produces. Typically, in Taiwan, residents won't take their trash out until they hear the garbage truck song played like, I guess, an ice cream truck would play music in the US. Whereas in New York City, some of that trash sits out over the weekend, days on end. Essentially, there's a group of rat catchers, humans, and their dog companions that wait until nightfall to get together and go hunt down rats. It can get a little graphic depending on the video you pull up, as there are multiple features on this. Just keep that in mind, because I personally actually don't hate rats. I don't mind them, and in general, rats actually make pretty good pets. Rats have also contributed significantly to science as lab rats, making invaluable contributions to cardiovascular medicine, neural regeneration, wound healing, diabetes, transplantation, behavioral studies, and space motion sickness research. Almost all disease-linked human genes have counterparts in the rat, and although rats do not think like humans, some of their brain structure resembles the more primitive elements of human brains, and hence they can be used to model some human behaviors. Speaking of how smart rats are considered by experts to be one of the smartest species on the planet. That is along with chimpanzees, bottlenose dolphins, elephants, dogs, pigeons, and octopuses. Rats are capable of making decisions based on what they do or do not know, which is called metacognition. With a little food and positive reinforcement, pet owners can teach their rats to perform a multitude of tricks, including completing mazes, running over to you when you call their name, etc. I've even seen rats who've learned to drive small cars. And a study led by researcher Dr. Ben Vermarchi revealed that some rats can even tell the difference between movies that have rats in them and movies that don't have rats in them, meaning that if you watched Ratatouille with a pet rat, I don't know, they might enjoy it. Most of the animal-centric holidays are in celebration of the animal, not like Rat Catcher's Day. There is another upcoming animal-centric holiday that is also not so much in celebration of the animal. July 23rd is Mosquito Day. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, calls mosquitoes the world's deadliest animal. Diseases transmitted by mosquitoes cause more than 700,000 deaths worldwide each year. Some of the estimates vary, the most bleak of which names mosquitoes responsible for up to 1 million human deaths per year. That's comparable to the number of people who die in car accidents worldwide each year. Can you guess the second most deadly animal? I'll give you a hint. It may be much more familiar than you may have guessed. Humans. The third deadliest animal, snakes, are only responsible for a fraction of that amount, around 50 to 100,000 human deaths per year, which is only about a tenth of what mosquitoes are responsible for. There are over 2,500 different species of mosquitoes, and they are found in every region of the world except for one, Antarctica. In Taiwan, one species, informally called 小黑蚊, or literally little black mosquito, is in fact not even a mosquito. That's coming right from the Taipei Zoo website. They both belong to the order Diptera, but these little 小黑蚊, little black mosquitoes, are instead blood-sucking midges. Midges don't have the same proboscis, piercing mouthparts that bite and suck blood. That makes them slightly less harmful and deadly, as they are less likely to transmit diseases. In fact, some midges might actually contribute to the ecosystem they're in by helping break down matter. Not only do mosquitoes carry diseases that affect humans, they can also carry and transmit diseases and parasites that dogs and horses are susceptible to. Have you ever noticed that you are more or less likely to be bitten by mosquitoes? Perhaps you've noticed a friend or family member who either almost never gets bitten or who gets bitten all the time despite not seeing a mosquito in sight. There is some science that suggests mosquitoes are in fact more attracted to some people over others. Factors like body temperature and the amount of carbon dioxide you exhale could contribute to that. When I was younger, I even had a vegetarian person tell me that vegetarians get bitten less often as their blood is less appealing to mosquitoes. I tried it out. I was a vegetarian for around 8 years, granted not for that reason, and I did in fact get bitten very infrequently. However, there's not much scientific evidence to back up this claim or theory. Scientists say your diet doesn't affect how likely you are to get bitten by mosquitoes. Your clothes, on the other hand, just might. To reduce the possibility of a mosquito biting you, you could consider wearing white, green, or blue. Lighter colors are less interesting to mosquitoes when compared to darker shades like navy, black, red, or orange. This is also somewhat linked to temperature, as lighter colored clothing is less likely to absorb and trap heat. But that's enough about mosquitoes for now, right? Because I've never met a person who actually likes mosquitoes. I'd add to the CDC's title of world's deadliest animal by saying they're the world's antagonists or villains for all the havoc they've wreaked and the deaths they've caused. So that's about enough of them for now. Instead, why don't we talk about some animal current events? The news that usually doesn't make it to your front page or even RTI's news segment, but if you're listening to the show, then you probably want to hear about it. The first line of this article from France 24 includes, Hollywood stars aren't the only celebrities who live in the hills around LA. Southern California's mountain lions also make homes there and are sometimes almost as famous. Although the report is mostly about conservation efforts and not so much about how famous the mountain lions are. These mountain lions, also known as pumas or cougars, are native to California. Just this week, north of Los Angeles is one of the most ambitious efforts to reduce humanity's impact on the giant cats at the Wallace-Annenberg Wildlife Crossing. The project includes plans to complete bridges for wild animals across 10 lanes of Highway 101, which is one of the busiest roads in Southern California. The freeway was constructed around 60 years ago and had the unintended consequence of cutting off all of the Santa Monica Mountains from another nearby mountain range, as explained by Lauren Gill, the National Wildlife Federation's Deputy Director for California. When such separations occur, they create an island of habitat, cutting the mountain lions off from all of the wild area to the north. That is very similar to the problem leopard cats face in Taiwan, where roads have divided up habitat into small islands. Attempts to cross streets often result in injuries and deaths from colliding with vehicles. Again, this is happening in both Taiwan and the United States. In California specifically, this has diminished the genetic diversity of several native species and put the mountain lions at risk of extinction by reducing their usual habitat for hunting and reproducing. Lauren Gill also mentioned something I find very fascinating. Some birds even need help crossing the freeway. And we're not talking about flightless birds like chickens or penguins. Wind currents generated by the freeway often make it impossible for smaller birds like the wren-tit to cross. The bridges, called wildlife crossings, will be covered by local plants, and they look to fix the problem by reconnecting the mountains, creating a safe passage for all of the local fauna. The $80 million project is expected to reach completion in 2025. Over in the UK, a herring gull got trapped in an unusual form of litter and had to be rescued. Fire crews and RSPCA animal rescuer Shane Lin was dispatched to provide some help. Lin noted that they often find discarded fishing litter causes birds to get tangled up in objects like TV aerials. In this case, the bird was also tangled up on a TV aerial, but upon closer look, they found out what that unusual litter was. It was actually hair extensions. Lin said, in all of his time working for the RSPCA, rescuing an animal from hair extensions has never come up. This just goes to show you that even the most unlikeliest kinds of litter can be hazardous to wildlife. Once freed, the bird was found to have superficial leg wounds, which were treated by a vet, and the gull was later released back into the wild. This next one sounds so unrealistic that I am questioning it, but it's on The Guardian, which is reasonably trustworthy. So here, I'll read you the same headline that I saw. Man in China caught smuggling 100 live snakes in his trousers. This man was stopped by customs as he tried to slip out of Hong Kong into the border city of Shenzhen. China Customs gave a statement stating upon inspection, customs officers discovered that the pockets of the trousers the passenger was wearing were packed with 6 canvas drawstring bags and sealed with tape. Once opened, each bag was found to contain living snakes in all kinds of shapes, sizes, and colors. Why the man had so many live snakes and why he was trying to smuggle them across the border is unclear at this time. One other news article is talking about ants, and because we're headed into summer here in Taiwan, the amount of ants here, there, everywhere has increased drastically. The ants that are here really do thrive in warmer weather, and I don't know if they're full of energy or if they're starving, but they have showed up in my home, and I swear they are getting smarter. Let me tell you why. I have known that leaving food out for my cats has been a problem in the past. I found out that they actually sell ant-proof bowls. Ants aren't so good with water, so these bowls, which you can use for dogs, cats, rabbits, anything, they have basically a moat of water, a circle around the outside of the bowl, and then you put the food on the inside. So if the ants sniff it out and try to get to it, they have to choose between dying in the water or just not reaching the food. This has worked great for a long time. But one day, I go home, the water is still in the moat, and yet there are ants just covering, I swear, hundreds of ants just covering the bowl of food. You know why? Because one of the ants figured out that there's a hole in the back of the bowl. So if they go under it, through the hole and back up, they can get to the food and get back out safely. Somehow they were able to communicate this to the entire colony of ants, and they just followed in that ant's footsteps. So I don't know what level of genius this one ant is, so I had to tape up the hole. So this news article I was talking about from ABC News, it says these ants can perform leg amputations and know when it's needed. Essentially, ants are very territorial and can get into fights with rival colonies, which can leave some of the ants injured. They have developed an effective wound treatment, which is just amputation. If we as humans were to amputate an ant leg, it would probably take 1 second, maybe less. But this process of amputation performed by the ants takes about 40 minutes and requires one ant to chew on the other ant's affected leg. The helper ant, the doctor ant here, will then clean that new wound for them. I'm honestly impressed to know that they can focus on a task for 40 minutes. When honestly, let's be real, a lot of us humans can't even do that. Wow, has this been an unpleasant episode to listen to? All kinds of pests? I'll try to make the next one a little bit more pleasant for you. Anyway, how about that contest I mentioned where you can have a box of animal-centric merchandise sent to you for sending in a physical letter with a story about a pet or animal, plus a photo? I'm here to give you an update on that. To review, as a part of Formosa Fauna, I'm hoping to hear stories from listeners, like you, about your own interactions with your pets and beyond. The stories and photos that listeners send in can then become a regular part of our show. To kick us off, during the first episode, I offered the first person who gets their physical letter and photo to me a box of animal merchandise, including a Formosan black bear plushie that turns into a neck pillow. Also, local vegetarian delicacies and mystery keepables that will be adorable and practical to have around. As of the time of recording this episode, slightly less than a week after the last episode, I have not yet received a letter. So if you did send in a letter, that does not necessarily mean that it won't get here. It just means that I haven't received it yet. It could also mean that nobody thought they would be fast enough, so nobody sent in a letter. If you haven't gotten around to it yet and you're interested, please act quickly. I'm also going to promote this program on my YouTube channel, which has over 200,000 subscribers, but I held off a little to give the regular RTI listeners a head start. I'm going to be posting a video and sharing about this program and the little contest next week though. So like I said, act fast. The Radio Taiwan International building is in Taiwan, meaning that someone sending a letter in from Taiwan would likely have more of an advantage due to the short distance. But if the first letter I receive is from Taiwan, and I later get a letter postmarked before that one, that's an international letter, I will try to put another box together. That way it's fair for listeners across the globe. If you do send something in, but it doesn't end up being the first, rest assured, I will still value and treasure it greatly. I'll try to read it on air and try to send you a little something back for your troubles. Wink, wink. Either way, it won't go to waste. The address can be found online. Just look for the number 55 Bei An Road address in Taipei, Taiwan. Again, at any point in time, you're welcome to send in emails. Write that email to tristan@rti.org.tw. That is tristan@rti.org.tw. But it won't be part of the little contest. Congratulations! You've made it to the end of a Formosa Fauna episode. Making it to the end of an episode makes you a Formosa Fauna friend. It's not gross, it's cute. Thank you for tuning in, friend. All animals require enrichment, and Formosa Fauna is just that. After all, we're all just a bunch of wild animals. See you next time for Formosa Fauna Fridays here on Radio Taiwan International.